All right. Could be Jamie, could be Jaime Perez. Thank you for the question here on the Coliseum Chronicles show at the Voice of College Football, our USC show. Do you think they need a wide receiver from the portal? All right, Ethan, I'm going to toss it to you. But first, my simple thought is, USC does need some depth behind Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. There's no question about that. But in terms of the hierarchy of needs, a little Maslow here, a little philosophy for you here at the Voice of College Football. If there's a hierarchy of needs, offensive line is definitely number one, especially since USC's fortified its defense at safety and linebacker in the portal. O-line is the thing. And just the point to reinforce about that, before we get to the receivers and before I toss it over to you, Ethan, is just that, remember, Miller Moss was not a bad quarterback, but he wasn't the Caleb Williams rock star, the guy who could just, put on the cape and pretty much do it himself, as we saw in 2022. When you don't have the rock star quarterback, when you don't have the elite, polished, complete product that Caleb Williams was, he needs help. So Jaden Mayava, like Miller Moss, is not the complete, fully finished product. Now, could he ripen into that over the course of the season? Sure, he could, but he's not all there right now. And as we remember with the USC Michigan game last season, you throw Miller Moss, you throw a newer, younger, less proven quarterback into a hostile Big Ten road environment in Ann Arbor. To expect him to be letter perfect in that first really daunting Big Ten road game, not a realistic ask. And Miller Moss was not ready, but he didn't have nearly the pass protection and the overall line play in that Michigan game that he needed to be comfortable. And so if we basically put Jaden Mayava in 2025 on the same plane as Miller Moss 1 year ago, and I think it's fair to do that. I think they're pretty much in the same place in terms of development, live reps, overall experience, overall level of preparation for everything. They don't have zero preparation, but they're not fully finished, complete products. You need to give them as much help and as much quality on the offensive line as is possible. Now, people will make the point that, you need depth at wide receiver to help out your quarterback. Not going to argue that point, but just if you had to choose O-line or receiver in the portal, I know where I'm going. Ethan, wrestle with those same tension points I just talked about. Like what added nuance can you apply to all of this?
I think that I agree on the offensive line point. I think that I'd add that something we talked about last week a lot is Mayava's confidence and how that's going to factor a lot in his success. I think that any time that you can make a quarterback like him that's less polished and has thrived in situations when he's been able to take a little bit more risks, some confidence and some comfortability, even if he is a guy that can be elusive, just helping him to feel comfortable, helping him to feel like he's not looking over his back shoulder all the time. That's beneficial, and that's only going to help him, going to help the team. I think that should be an emphasis for USC in the portal for sure. In terms of the wide receiver question, I think that there will be some exploration of for USC in terms of getting a receiver in the portal. I do think that Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane are two guys who are for real and can be the number one and number two wide receivers on this team. I also think that if healthy, Lake McCree is a guy who can take a good share of the wide receiver or of the receiving reps this year for sure. So it's not like you need a number one or number two or even really a number three guy per se. I think that Prince Strahan is also a guy kind of waiting in the wings that could turn out to be a really productive receiver for this team. He obviously is a transfer from Boise State. So I think that, but again, I think that beyond Lemon, beyond Lane, beyond Lake McCree, like if injuries come up and they have to go to the depth, it's a lot of unproven guys. So I think that you need guys who have a lot of potential, that can develop, that can learn under these guys. And that can step in if potentially some of these guys are injured. That's obviously not what we hope, but it's a reality that we have to plan for. But yeah, I don't think that getting a guy that's going to play ahead of these guys is necessarily a super big need. And I also think that wouldn't even be beneficial to their development. I think these are two guys in Lemon and Lane that can be superstars at the collegiate level. And I think that it would be beneficial, again, similar to what we talked about with Maava, for Lincoln Riley to really instill some confidence in them. So I foresee them starting. I don't foresee them getting a guy that plays above those two guys, but I could see them getting some depth pieces for sure.